Department of Justice's office. I'd like to know about that. That's why they should testify. They're also talking about a phone they have where they're talking about Hillary Clinton's investigation, and we can't talk on this phone. Where'd that phone go? I'd like to see that phone. Maybe they smash it with a hammer like Hillary. They're Trump haters and they're snobs because they referred to Republican voters in Virginia as ignorant hillbillies. And they're also Comey loyalists, and they love him to death. We've seen those texts, and they hate congressional oversight. They were besmirching the Republican Congress. There's also a wide gap, too, which was very interesting. So on the 28th of September, 2016, they discovered these Huma and Hillary emails on Weiner's laptop. A whole month passed before Comey comes out, and he says he was just briefed on the new emails they discovered. What happened in that month? I'd like to know that. People suspect McCabe, who was ushered out by Christopher Wray, may have something to do with delaying that. We're going to find out sooner or later. Yeah. But the bottom line is that it's clear now that these Trump-hating FBI agents were on an anti-Trump mission, and President Obama may be involved.
Yeah. That's really funny.
Look at Juan.
I mean, I
Joke's
love it.
on you, Juan.
Juan can barely control himself.
I think, at some point, Jesse, it's like, they talk about fog of war. This is fog of foolishness.
Okay,
At
tell
some
me why.
point, because it's obvious the president, and Dana picked up on this, Democrats are upset that President Obama did not do enough in terms of the Russian interference that he and the intelligence agencies had confirmed was taking place during the 2016 election.
Okay.
The idea that the FBI should be briefing the president on Russian interference is not far-fetched. That makes sense. That's
How
what's
do you
going
know
on.
that's what President Obama wanted to be briefed on?
Because the circumstances, the timing is exactly right. Not only that, the Wall Street Journal has an article out today, and it says, texts from the 2016 preparation to brief Barack Obama about Russian interference in that year's election.
So
Jesse,
you're sure that these Trump-hating FBI
Jesse, I don't interrupt you. I let you, Jesse, I let you rant and rave on this show. I really do. I let you have I let you have the floor. But Jesse, at some point, don't you think it would be good, instead of always throwing up conspiracy theories to try to defend the indefensible Donald Trump, you might come with some facts?
You've been calling this whole thing a conspiracy for the last year, yet every time facts come out, it proves you wrong.
Give me some facts. I'm saying
everything you said about Hillary's probe was rigged.
Oh, my gosh. Please. Jesse, tonight,
reporting this
on
for
this
a year.
Topic, don't bring Obama into it. Just on this topic.
I didn't bring him into it. He's in the text.
But Juan,
How about
it's
Clinton?
the text messages, part of the elements for tonight's show. Is he supposed to ignore them?
But I'm saying everybody knows what this is about, except Jesse, who wants to make it.
I hedged and said it could have been about Clinton, the Russia probe, or the Trump surveillance.
Guess what?
We don't know.
Today,
maybe he could answer some questions.
Even today, Eric Holder at a breakfast meeting said President Obama never contacted him about any FBI investigation.
I don't trust Eric Holder as far as I can throw him. The guy was held in contempt of Congress.
Did we just play a clip of President Obama saying he doesn't get involved in FBI investigations?
Correct.
Well, whether it's about Donald Trump or the Russian investigation, he's involved, right?
No.
He just said I never
involved. He's asking, tell me what's going on with the Russians trying to influence an American election. That is appropriate.
You're putting words in the text.
Oh, I see. Okay. The Wall Street Journal is too, I guess.
The thing is that with every bombshell, it's like we're getting shell-shocked because no one is a bombshell. Every time new information comes out, more texts come out. We forget about the last ones. I always think that the best references in these page texts have to do with Hillary. When on September 28th, you were talking about the Andy's office meeting. He said, new emails came out, the Huma and Weiner emails came out. And he says, Strzok says, will this never end? Strzok. Will this never end? He's dying to wrap up this Hillary thing. And you go back 5 months before when he says when Trump was going to be the nominee. Remember when Cruz dropped out and Trump was going to be the nominee? They were going crazy on the text. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, Trump is going to be the nominee. And now the pressure starts to finish the MYE. We know what that is, the Hillary investigation. He was trying to wrap up that Hillary investigation. And Juan, that's your evidence. It's all over the place. Bring in the jury. I will stand and I'm ready to lecture the jury. There are so many incriminating texts in this
Strzok
thing.
He was right about one thing.
What's that?
It will never end.
Yeah.
We're still talking about it, and
Exactly.
it is 2018. One thing it does go back to over and over again is this decision by Hillary Clinton and her team that allowed her to do it, including the White House, that allowed her to have a private server, a separate set of circumstances, emails that got destroyed, wiped up from the server. These guys end up talking about that, they're having their affair and talking about business and investigations on their government phones.
This is the unsexiest affair ever. Did they talk about anything?
I don't know. A lot of it was redacted, right? Was there I don't know. Did you read the whole thing?
We didn't.
Yeah.
It's not even a meet me for coffee or what? There's not even a what are you wearing? There's nothing.
No, at one point he says, "Is it okay for me to send you some pictures?"
Ooh.
It did. That's what it said.
Coming up on the phone.
We don't have the pictures.
We like pictures. But
no, we don't.
Not those kind of pictures.
Pretty sure we don't.
But Tom, just because we have two lovers who are sending, it's unbelievable how many emails they sent, right?
Yeah.
50,000. It doesn't mean that you can't have personal opinions.
It does.
Guess
Juan,
what?
it's more than that. People keep saying that. It's just people with a bias. They can put it aside.
They do.
They can't put it aside.
Why can't they
He's
put it
going to be
aside?
president. I'm losing my mind! Exclamation
so
point.
what?
It's unbelievable.
Oh, you think
we've got to do something.
You must be
it's
forgetting-
very incriminating.
You must have forgotten
about
Election Day
security.
2016. There are people in this building screaming. Okay.
But also, they
Really?
must have been very
That was you.
ineffective. I mean, to the point, if they were trying to stop something, they were very ineffective because, again, Comey's letter 10 days before the election is what so many Democrats point to as the point where they saw a lot of independent women support drop in all of the key states.
Well,
I don't
it should have
know.
dropped more
if
he didn't change the wording, though, right?
He was going to win anyway.
But our guy, Strzok, right?
Strzok.
He changed the
As in
words. He changed it from, what's the words, Jesse? From extremely negligent to, oops,
Whoops.
yeah.
downplayed it.
And so it would have dropped even more if he didn't water it down.
You're talking about when Comey was speaking in July, not in September, early October.
See?
What?
It'll never.
I want to tell you guys about this other memo that dropped last night, this Grassley memo. Now, this is really interesting, Juan. I'd like to hear your defense on this. So, Hillary
I think you're the
crony,
defender.
Sid Blumenthal.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was feeding anti-Trump smears through the Obama State Department, and it wound up in Chris Steele's dossier. Now, Christopher Steele's dossier was based, now we know, on two things: Russian government sources and Sid Blumenthal's lies. The FBI also knew that Christopher Steele had been lying and had been leaking to the press about this. Yet they still used the dossier, and they still used Steele's credibility to the FISA court to present that as justification for spying on the Trump associates. Why would the FBI do that? Why would they hide the funding from the judge? Why did they deceive the judge?
We got Trey Gowdy on this, and I'm going to ask you to give your reaction, Juan.
Okay.
When you hear who the source, or one of the sources of that information is, you're going to think, oh my gosh, I've heard that name somewhere before. Where could it possibly have been? And
The foreign source?
the domestic source. And I'm trying to think how Secretary Clinton defined him. I think she said he was an old friend who emailed her from time to time.
Sidney Blumenthal?
That'd be really warm if you're warm. Yeah.
That'd be hot.
Not warm.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, so Juan, get you to respond to that.
So I don't get it. Much of what's
We
in
know,
the
Juan,
Steele,
you don't get it.
I don't get you. I don't get why you think that this is somehow an indictment of the Steele dossier or the investigation. I would hope that you would have every source available if you are trying to get information about how the Russians are trying to influence our election and potentially colluding with
the
candidate Donald
source
Trump.
of the dossier was a Hillary crony
It doesn't matter.
Russian liars in the Russian government.
So here's the thing, Jesse.
So do you think
If
that's
it's
enough
true-
to present to a judge to spy
Yes,
on Americans?
Jesse.
It's not.
Okay,
because it's not verified,
Jesse,
Juan.
the judge
You're
was
not allowed
told-
to do that.
Yes, you are.
No, you're not. You cannot present unverified information to a FISA judge.
Jesse, slow down, man. Let me talk for a second.
You
might
cannot.
learn something, okay? But clearly, the judge was told that the source of the dossier was a political partisan. The judge understood this.
Political.
Okay.
Was a
Did
player.
not say where it came from.
Yes, didn't specify, but they're political.
Okay, so it has no bearing whether or not the opponent of the person they're running for president against.
It's true.
It wasn't true.
Of course it was true.
What
But
was
let me
true
just-
about the dossier?
I'm not getting into that here, but I will
Name
make
one
this
thing.
point. You know what,
we
Jesse?
have the same thing. It's like Groundhog
All
Day.
that we know about today is this day with this business about the FBI lovers and their texts. You guys are so desperate to somehow undermine Robert Mueller. You'll do anything. Republicans will put on blinders not to see
undermine themselves
about Donald Trump.
Nevertheless, you've not been able to proffer one fact forward that was accurate or true in the dossier to support that. Therefore, it's lacking any kind of credibility or veracity.
Oh, yeah. How about the Russians interfered in our presidential election?
Well, and that's one thing that Trey Gowdy also said to Martha last night in the interview is that regardless of the dossier, there would have been an investigation about Russian meddling in the election. But the other thing I want to say about the Grassley memo that you mentioned that kind of irritates me about the Nunes memo, that apparently, remember I made this whole big thing about how you shouldn't take a Yahoo News article in to convince the judge that there's corroboration. Well, in the Grassley memo, it says it wasn't used for corroboration, that Yahoo News article. So I feel like I get cautious about commenting on all of this because it's cherry-picked information. It's not complete.
I don't get what you mean.
The Grassley memo says that the Yahoo News article derived from Steele was used to corroborate Steele, but that is not why the article was referenced. The Grassley memo appears to confirm that it was not presented for the purpose of corroboration.
So there's a contradiction, therefore
but I was so indignant
I didn't read that in the memo. I didn't see that. I know they did present it alongside the dossier.
Yeah. We got to get Tom in, and then we're like already in like the deep.
I'll be calm, Juan. I'll be calm. I'll be friendly. It's dirty. It's dirty.
It's dirty.
It's dirty.
You know what I think? Peter Strzok's going to start sending texts to Jesse, little love notes, and it's going to blow Jesse's mind.
Please don't.
The number of people.
Thousands. They're going to both be Eagles fans.
And Steele was.
Yep, and I'll bleach them.
Okay, so we got to go. You guys can continue this witty repartee during the break or not. Yeah. We have the greatest military in the world, and our commander-in-chief wants to show it off. But President Trump's getting pushback on his idea to hold a parade for our troops. That's next on The Five. Won't you stay with us?
We have the most powerful military in the world, and President Trump wants to honor our service members with a parade. He got the idea from watching Bastille Day celebrations on a trip to France in the summer. The Pentagon's looking at options.
I think we're all aware in this country of the president's affection and respect for the military. We've been putting together some options. We'll send them up to the White House for decision. The president's respect, his fondness for the military, I think is reflected in him asking for these options.
Of course, the parade of critics are crowing about the idea.
This is beneath us as a nation. We are the most powerful military on earth. We're very proud of that, and rightly so. We don't need to be parading our military hardware down Pennsylvania Avenue to show that to anybody.
That it's a fantastic waste of money to amuse the president.
We have a Napoleon in the making here. I think everyone should be offended by his need to always be showing.
So I was reading Twitter last night, and Ari Fleischer, one of your guys, press secretary, said when he was, I think, 30, they had the 91 Desert Storm Parade in America, and it was a spectacle that he really enjoyed.
Yep, and he said he wouldn't mind doing it again. And it was after that big military victory. It cost $12 million at the time. Apparently, this would cost upwards of $22 million. Jennifer Griffin was on the show today, the 2 p.m. show, and I asked her what is the reaction of the Pentagon, and she said it was a collective eye roll.
Oh, gosh.
I do think that the Democrats, though, were very predictable in their response, and I don't think it was politically smart to do so. I think that what you should have said, if you're a Democrat, is to say, we honor the troops all the time. We love the military. In fact, what we should do, Mr. President, that money that you want to spend on the parade, let's put that into increasing wages for the men and women in uniform. I think that would be a better way to do it, Mr. President. And then they wouldn't look like they are just being petty and thinking that he's trying to turn us into a dictatorship. But the other thing is, as soon as I heard about this news, I knew it would be another one of these draw a line in the culture war sand. And if you are not for this, then you hate the military and you don't like the president. And if you are for it, then you are turning the country into a dictatorship. I think that we do a lot of honoring of the troops. If they decide to have a parade and we decide as a country that it's worth the money to do it, great. But we shouldn't be you shouldn't be blind to the fact that there's a ton of politics here.
There are a ton of politics, and Dana makes the point that Democrats could get boxed in on the issue, Juan, just like they did with the national anthem in the NFL and the kneeling, where President Trump comes out strong with the side of the Patriots.
Is that right?
And I mean, patriotic people. Thank gosh. And 30% of the Democrats on the far left look like they're anti-flag. Do you worry about that happening again?
Oh, I think it's inevitable to some degree because we have such a polarized group of Americans these days. So the president, people who are Trump supporters will say, well, he wants a big parade. He's honoring the military. It's all about patriotism. You stop and you say, well, how many patriotic presidents have we had? And nobody does this. Where do we see this kind of thing? We see it in Red Square. We see it from the North Koreans.
But he saw it in France.
What about France? I know. I thought you guys loved French people.
Yeah,
you always want to imitate the French.
But let me tell you, the French have a tradition. You know, Bastille Day goes back a ways because of the French Revolution.
That is true.
And when George H.W. Bush did this, we had just won something. There was something to celebrate. On the contrary, we're still stuck in Afghanistan at the moment.
Well, I think maybe one idea, Kimberly, is to do it on the 100-year anniversary of America's victory in World War I, which would be November, and that way it might be less political. And I would like to nominate you to be the Grand Marshal.
Oh, I would love it. Indeed, I would. Yeah. I love a good parade. I do. I mean, a nice lawful parade where people are respectful and then they, clean up the streets after.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. I think it would be fantastic to have something like this. I would really enjoy it. I think the president is genuine and sincere in his appreciation, his love for the military. They do so much. It's like, so we want to begrudge them a parade? Why? Why not? Why wouldn't any patriotic American say, let's have a nice parade? I get it about expenses and this and that, but we seem to spend a lot of money recklessly and foolishly on things that don't matter. And I think our liberty and our personal freedoms and freedom of expression that people gleefully enjoy in this country that has been hard fought and won are by the brave men and women in our military. And so I'm all for honoring them in any way for the large sacrifices.
Would you wear a helmet? Would you wear a helmet if you were in the tank and you were rolling down Constitution?
No, she's not Dukakis.
I want her to be Mike Dukakis. That's right.
Are you pro-parade or anti-parade?
I mean, what a perfect, that I could use that as a voting brochure. If you're pro-parade, I'm going to vote for you. Parades are fantastic, and it's amazing how quickly we jump from parade to North Korea. I mean, it's quite amazing.
I was waiting for it. I was like, 1, 2.
I do wonder, though, what you would have said if President Obama came up with this idea.
Oh, my God.
I'm curious.
I wouldn't have. What a tremendous waste of money.
I know.
20 trillion debt.
Honest.
The
trending photo.
The parade should definitely just have a bunch of guys with their laptops, because our best weapon right now is cyber. Cyber warfare is the most important weapon that we have.
A cyber parade.
No, they can have their own float, the computer guys.
All right.
And
Joe Biden out and about, letting it rip again on President Trump. Your afternoon cup of Joe up next.
You can go your own way.
Former Vice President Joe Biden hasn't kept his feelings about the president close to the vest, and he's not about to start now. Joe was fired up about Mr. Trump's attacks on the FBI, Democrats, and more in a brand new interview. Here are some highlights.
This is the first president to make a full-throated, unvarnished attack on the entirety of the FBI, sowing doubt about whether or not our justice system is fair, sowing doubt about whether or not there is anything that's remotely consistent with our Constitution. It's a disaster. I just marvel at some of the things he says and does. Like, 2 days ago, anybody didn't stand up and clap for him was un-American and then maybe even treasonous. Well, let me tell you, he's a joke.
Wow. Kimberly, how would you respond? Because I know you like Joe Biden.
That he really took it down a few notches for me there. I don't like it. But I mean, look, I liked him in terms of his personality, whatever. I don't like his rhetoric and his comments about the president there. I think that, I don't know, it just seemed kind of like not in keeping with the Joe Biden we kind of know. I thought it was a little harsh, aggressive, and also inaccurate. I don't know that he served well for his future political aspirations by saying something like that, per se. Maybe, but there's people, I think, if you're Joe Biden, that you think you can get that are crossovers or independents. And I don't know, by saying something like that about the president, that was a smart, strategic political move. That's what I was thinking about.
So, Dana, when you watch it, I know you always look at things from a messaging point of view. One of the things that the former vice president had to say was that President Trump's always trying to undo everything that President Obama did. And he says, trying to undo the legacy so far, he's failed. Does that message?
Well, I think,
good?
I think the proof does not bear that out. I think the dereg piece of the Trump administration has been quite impressive. And that has been because, remember, President Obama got so frustrated and didn't want to compromise. So he decided he'd use his pen and a phone. And then that means that the next president can use a pen and a phone as well to undo that part of your legacy. And also on the judges front for President Trump, that's significant. I think that Biden, he personifies the Democrats' problem right now. On the one hand, he could really appeal to some Democrats, and like in the Northeast, maybe in the West. But there might not even be room for him in the Democratic Party if it continues to move so far left. And the other thing is, he will be 80 years old or so around the time that if he were going to be running in his upper 70s. And maybe, the upper 70s might be the new 50. But if you have all of these younger people in a very crowded Democratic primary, I think that will be really difficult. But I'm going to disagree with Kimberly on one thing. I think that Joe Biden has been a very effective attack dog for the Democrats for a long time. And President Obama could rise above and let him go out, and he's not afraid to mix it up.
No,
and
I agree
think
with that.
They are.
Just not
I
this
think
one.
that he thinks that. I think that Biden thinks he's counterpunching. And the Democrats are going to want somebody who is that aggressive.
Jess?
Well, listen, if Trump's the joke, then Biden's the punchline. The name Biden is synonymous with gaffe, whether it's telling someone in a wheelchair to stand up, dropping the F-bomb on a hot mic, or getting handsy with young ladies in a photo line. He hasn't distinguished himself as VP. If Dick Cheney had called Biden a joke or Obama a joke, I mean, there would have been hell to pay. So I didn't think it was in keeping with presidential or vice presidential protocol.
That's what I think.
And the elder statesmen of the Democratic Party have really been in the gutter recently. President Obama kind of hinted that Donald Trump was like Hitler. John Kerry was interfering in Trump's Middle East peace process. Hillary's accused President Trump of being a Russian traitor. And then VP Biden comes out and calls him a joke. I think they're a little desperate. One, he might be testing the waters, but they might need a heavy hitter to come out and throw some punches after the bad news the Democrats have endured the last couple weeks. But if you really want to get into a schoolyard taunt contest with President Trump, I don't think Biden's going to win that battle.
He'll have a nickname before long.
I think he said he wanted to take Trump out in the schoolyard at one point.
That's true.
So, Tom, here's the most surprising thing from the interview. He says that if he was one of Trump's lawyers, he'd advise the president not to meet and be interviewed by Robert Mueller.
That was the least surprising thing in the interview, Bond.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. I think everybody would give him that advice. I think the most surprising thing was this: a full-throated, unvarnished attack on the entirety of the FBI. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? It is not a full-throated attack on the entire FBI. Everybody, the right-wingist among us, is forced now to, when we're talking about this thing, to say, this isn't about the rank and file of the FBI. It's about the 5 or 6 people that are mentioned in this memo and all these texts and everything else. We think they're the rotten ones. And that's what the president says as well. What is this thing about the full-throated attack? That's ridiculous, Juan.
You think that's ridiculous?
I think it's ridiculous.
Really? Because people might confuse it. I see.
Because no one has a full-throated attack on the FBI.
Oh.
Not even Sean Right-Wing Hannity. Every night he can't finish a sentence without saying this isn't about the rank and file.
Yeah,
we all agree on that one, including the president.
You know what, Tom? You've been vindicated, to quote President Trump. Yes, that memo has vindicated you. And Hannity,
100%.
Hannity will vindicate you tonight. Vindicate? Yes, vindicate. Validate. A surprise Olympic decision by Kim Jong-un coming up next. Stay with us.
The 2018 Winter Olympics begin in South Korea on Friday. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un won't be there, but he's sending his younger sister to attend as part of a government delegation. History will be made. Kim Yo-jong will be the first immediate member of her ruling family to ever set foot in the South. The news was just announced before Vice President Pence delivered a new warning to her big brother.
I'm announcing today that the United States of America will soon unveil the toughest and most aggressive round of economic sanctions on North Korea ever. And we will continue to isolate North Korea until it abandons its nuclear and ballistic missile program once and for all.
So, Kimberly, I like this diplomatic approach because when the North Koreans said, well, we'll maybe told the South Koreans, we'll come down if we could do something joint. And we were all like, OK, good. Well, maybe this is good, a nice opening. And then we follow up with a little bit of, but don't forget, we're watching you and we're going to continue to make sure you denuclearize. I like it.
I think it is. It was measured. It was reasonable. It seems that it's, it's been effective. And so far, they should maintain this course. And then I think it's interesting that he's sending a woman, sending his sister there. So he's trying to make some smart moves on, his behalf to improve their international image and sending a female, all of the above, especially since they have had horrific press, deservedly so, in light of Otto Warmbier and what they did to him and the other human rights atrocities that they commit on a regular basis under this regime. So, but I think the words of our Vice President were very measured and good and forceful in the right tone.
So, Jesse, do you think that all of this attempt by North Korea to look so normal is maybe going a little too far, that the South Koreans might have gone overboard?
Well, the South Korean prime minister's approval rating starting to nosedive as these attempts at reunification are going along. What do we call the sister? Little Rocket Woman? I think Trump needs a new nickname for her. I'd like to see a picture of her. Is that her right there?
I think so.
Okay.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, I think it's a smart overture on Little Rocket Man's behalf to send the younger sister. It's all converging at the same time. These sanctions are really starting to bite. I think the president deserves credit for the tough sanctions, along with the war games going on and some of the rhetoric on coming out of the United States and our generals. So, hopefully this goes in the right direction, because I know they better behave themselves during the Olympics or there's going to be hell to pay.
One, it is pretty remarkable that he would send his sister, and she is the first person in their family to ever step foot in South Korea since the split.
It's, from a historical point of view, you got to stop and think, wow, those people are so divided. They're neighbors. What strikes me about this is that in terms of the sanctions, her presence there is a violation of the sanctions. She is not supposed to be allowed to travel. So in a way, I think that Kim Jong-un might think he's being smart. He's thumbing his nose at a lot of people by sending her, because people are going to say, well, yeah, she should be allowed in as part of the delegation. Vice President Pence saying, well, we'll see. I think that was the most important part of his quote, is also, I think, being very smart to say, if they want to talk, if there's a possibility, he's open to it. I think that's a message we want to send, not only in terms of the North Koreans, but in terms of the world, in terms of saying, it's not ideal for us to have the South Koreans joining forces with the North Koreans in this delegation, because we as Americans want to send a clear message that North Korea's behavior is unacceptable.
Now, Tom, I've got 38 seconds for you, and you know radio, so tell us, what do you think about this?
Well, is it supposed to make us feel safer that he's sending a family member? Didn't he kill his uncle?
Yes, he did.
That's supposed to
You only needed 8 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. He's like poisoning people in airports, and the fact that he sends his sister, I don't know if
maybe she should be worried.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
I don't know what the plans are.
Maybe the sister deserts and stays in South Korea.
Well,
you never know.
Actually, I had that thought while you were talking. Wonder if there's any way that she could be, blink twice if you want us to come and rescue you.
Right.
All right, top Democrat Adam Schiff pranked by Russians promising dirt on President Trump. Ahead.
Don't wanna hear her name, I don't wanna see her face, I swear.
The ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee caught on tape talking to the Russians. Adam Schiff fooled by two Russian radio hosts promising compromising photos of President Trump.
She got compromising materials on Trump after their short relations.
Okay. And what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
Okay. And so Putin was made aware of the availability of the compromising material?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We will be back in touch with you through our staff to make arrangements to obtain these materials for our committee and for the FBI, and I appreciate you reaching out to us.
Punked! Juan, I say guilty. He even talks like a Russian. Compromat? What's he talking about?
The idea is a compromising material.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like,
Get it? Compromat.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like collusion, right?
Oh, it does. It sounds to me like this is...
Chatting with the Russians.
How old is this story, Tom?
This is fresh.
No, it's fresh.
This is fresh.
You're like the guy at the bakery. Yeah, well, it was here yesterday.
No, I freshened it up.
This story's been here for years. But it's out now because Republicans want to bury that Schiff memo that the president has to decide on by Friday.
Are you kidding me?
So they're attacking Schiff all of a sudden like, oh, this is new.
They're promoting the memo. Didn't they? Aren't the Republicans saying release all the memo, release the memo?
Everybody voted to release it.
They want all the memos out, right?
Yeah, so Trump hasn't approved the release of the memo. So right now he's on a hot spot. Everybody's waiting to see what he does. And I think that's why Trump's allies now decide, you know what, we've got to go after Adam Schiff.
So you're saying these are Trump's allies that set him up with, come on.
Not set him up with the phone call. The phone call was a prankster call, Kimberly.
Well, right, but you want to blame the president for that?
This is an old story that they brought out now because of the memo.
I hear what you're saying, but nevertheless, he took the call. He did the thing. He got.
Yeah, but all of us can get punked.
Then they when she was on the campaign trail, and these radio pranksters called, and they said
they've trucked a lot of people.
The president of whatever, and she took the call, and it's just like you should have protocols, but sometimes on a campaign you don't.
He said that he thought all along that it was. That it was a prank. So why did he get on the line? If he thought it was a prank, don't you think he would have given it to some of his flunkies?
Well, did he think it was a prank from the very beginning, or when he starts talking to them? Because you could sort of hear it in his voice. He's like, okay, and then what?
Well, he was taking notes.
Here's when he should have known it was a prank. The Russian woman's name was Olga Puzalat. Puzalat.
Oh my God.
I mean, Schiff's a sucker. Come on.
Yeah.
And why
Jesse would have caught that right away.
I know.
He's used that line.
Puzalat, please. And why do the Democrats keep wanting to see Trump naked? What is it with you guys?
No.
First the dossier.
Yeah.
Now you're taking, nude Trump. Oh, well, let's call our FBI contacts. What is it with you guys? You guys running on revenge porn. That's all you guys have, revenge porn.
Oh, I think Stormy Daniels might have revenge porn.
You mean the daughter of the Kardashian? That Stormy?
No, Stormy Daniels. Look it up. I don't think your mom will let you see it.
Probably your search history.
Never heard of her.
This,
guys,
is really intellectual.
I think we have to go. Is that what they're telling me? I appreciate you guys putting all the. Can you put the split screen before we leave of Schiff? I don't look like Adam Schiff, all right? Stop putting me next to.
Oh my God, you do.
Adam Schiff.
You do. Wait a minute.
This is what everyone on Twitter does. They put my face next to Adam.
Oh, you do.
Look at that.
You do.
You kind of do.
Tilt the chin up.
But you know what? He's very handsome.
He is very handsome.
What?
I'm just complimenting Tom.
Tom.
Come on, Kimberly, you look just like him. He's handsome. One more thing's up next.
Well, you're better looking than he is. Hey, it's time now for one more thing and another amazing episode of the highly acclaimed, yes, Kimberly's Food Court. There we go. Not sponsored by Onions or Beets. Remember that. Okay, so here's some amazing news that my friend Jesse Waters, who never wants me to pass up a good food court, let me know about today. McDonald's is launching a limited edition version of the Big Mac for a limited time. That's redundant. The junior and supersized version will celebrate 50 years since it launched. Jesse's going to dig in right there. So we have the Mac Junior, which I shall have here. And sans onions.
Oh my God.
And he has the Grand Big Mac.
So good.
And they're available from February 7th to March 20th. Jesse, you think yours is good?
It's so good.
Let me
It's all
taste
over
mine.
my face.
That's a different. That's Carl's Jr.
It's so good.
When they say get it all over your face.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's
I love
amazing.
It smells great. This is actually quite delicious and the perfect size. Jesse?
Yes. Okay. So, elementary school in Texas, there was a gentleman serving overseas in Qatar and was just welcomed back for a little surprise. Let's see it. So Staff Sergeant Garrett Mirren surprised his son Connor Mirren, Pecan Grove Elementary School. And I just love those moments. They're great to watch. And I'm just,
fantastic.
Beautiful.
Love those.
Really
very nice. Mom.
Okay.
Swallow.
It's okay, kid. So, I'm a baby hugger. You all know that from my love for my grandkids. So I was thrilled today that Gerber Baby Food Company gave a big, unconventional hug when it selected its 2018 Baby of the Year. They chose Lucas Warren, a 1-year-old with Down syndrome. He's the first child with Down syndrome to be picked for the role of Gerber's spokesbaby since the contest started in 2010. He was chosen from a pool of more than 140,000 entries. And a Gerber spokeswoman explained Gerber has a long-standing heritage of recognizing that every baby is a Gerber baby. And this year, Lucas is a perfect fit. Congratulations, Lucas.
So cute.
Oh my God, adorable.
Super cute. Want me to go, KG?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, today, David Beckham. You know him, KG? David Beckham?
Yeah.
Okay, so we launched a global malaria campaign. Malaria must die so millions can live. Calling upon leaders to prioritize the fight against malaria and build a strong mandate for bold political action. This is a disease that we could actually eliminate in our lifetime.
Amazing.
The campaign launched with the film featuring Beckham in a glass box under attack by a swarm of mosquitoes, which is like one of my worst nightmares. But it does represent the overwhelming threat malaria poses, and you can find out more at malariamustdie.com. It can be done, you guys. We can
I totally support
this.
It's very deadly. It really affects children too.
And we've made great progress.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
All right, Tom's next. What have I been doing?
Look at Kimberly.
Besides the radio show, I've been doing theater. Back to my roots. Riverdale Children's Theater, the best children's theater in America. Look at Captain Hook. That's me as Captain Hook. Production of Peter Pan.
Oh my God.
And I was in it with my kids. It's a great theater. We did almost 70 kids. And me as Captain Hook. There's my daughters, Agnes and Louise. They were in the cast. And I think we have a group photo of the whole cast.
Look at
Wow,
that.
Tom, that's kind of a big deal.
No, it is
Huge
a big deal.
theater.
He's very talented. He's very recession-proof because he can, hang with us. And
How many nights?
We did 6 performances, and it's a great theater. If anyone's in New York, go see Riverdale Children's Theater.
Impressive, I have to say.
Wait, but you were the only adult in the show?
We did have another adult playing, Mrs. Darling. You play Captain Hook and Mr. Darling, the Darling family. So, but it was a great, huge, wonderful.
Did you ever forget a line?
I was a little bit loose with the lines sometimes.
Okay. Improvise a little bit. Radio's done that for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you scratch your nose with the hook?
Set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of 5. Special Report is up next with Shannon Bream tonight. Hi, Shannon.
Hi. Kimberly, thank you very much. Well, coming up, the Senate reaches a